Rule number 3 says control the process and let go of the outcome. So here's where we're going to start really digging in to the meat of this, crush it with prospecting ideas. See, there's a couple of stages of what I call the no pressure call. So I'm going to give you all of the stages right up front, and then we're going to break each one down. So let's talk real specific about how can we connect with somebody in a way that makes it easy for them to open up, tell us what's really going on, and figure out right away, are they open to having a conversation? So let's break these stages down, and then we're going to dig into each one. So the first one is the opening. The second stage is we're going to ask for help. The third stage is a concept that I call relate versus admit. This is a game changer. And then the last one is the invitation. So let's talk about a no pressure call, a way for you to introduce what it is that you provide in a way that makes it easy for someone to get out of their own way and figure out if they want to have a conversation with you. So let's start with the first one, the opening. Now, by the way, did you know that there's 4 little words that absolutely destroy sales calls? Let me tell you what they are. How are you today? Think about that. How are you today? Only salespeople use that. And as soon as your prospect hears, how are you today? In their mind, they go, sales call. What do I have to do to get this person out of my office or off the phone? So what we're going to do is we're going to use something called a pattern interrupt. Now, it comes from the world of neuro-linguistic programming, a complete psychology, science that says how to get over fears and how to get people to do different things. We're not going to dig too deep into that. But here's what a pattern interrupt is. It's doing something in a way that somebody doesn't expect, so they don't automatically roll into their habitual habit or process that they have when something happens. So let's roll that back a little bit. Most salespeople, and for right now, let's just talk about prospecting on the phone. It'll save me from having to go back and forth. Most salespeople, when they start their sales calls off, they smile big, they talk loud, they sound enthusiastic, and they say, "Hi, it's Bob Marks over at XYZ. How are you today?" And here's what happens. When your prospect hears that, "How are you today?" they hear sales call. What do I have to do to get this person off the phone? Now, the downside to that is, outside of completely blowing your chances of making a sale, the downside to that is they may have wanted to talk to you. See, you're not the typical salesperson that's calling to see if they want to change their long distance or buy raffle tickets, right? You're a professional. They need to know what you have. They probably have questions about what it is that you do. They probably are interested, but we're not going to get that chance to open up a conversation if we sound like everybody else. So here's another rule that we coach to. It's not in the slides. It's not in the workbook that you have, but let me give it to you. If we want something different, we have to do something different. So let's open these conversations in a slightly different way. Could sound like this. You sound busy. Or it sounds like I might be catching you at a bad time. Now, when I have a chance to share these concepts with somebody who's brand new to sales, or really more often than not, somebody who's been in sales for a long time, and I introduce this concept of starting off your call with some version of, it sounds like I might be catching you at a bad time, they say, "Whoa, Bob, I don't need any help at all getting people to brush me off and get off the phone with me." But let me ask you this. Who doesn't say, "Sounds like I'm catching you at a bad time"? Who doesn't start their calls off that way? Yeah, salespeople. If we want something different, we have to do something different. There's another concept that goes just like this. Just because we bring it up doesn't mean it didn't exist. We just weren't a part of that conversation. So if we were to start the conversation off with some version of, "Hey, it's Bob Marks over at XYZ Company. Sounds like I might be catching you at a bad time." Instead of automatically jumping right to, "Yes, you are," click, because people in sales don't start their calls off that way, we've just interrupted their natural pattern, the habit that they slip into when they get rid of salespeople. If we start the conversation off with some version of, hey, it's Bob Marks over at XYZ Company, you sound busy. If you use this, here's what I think you'll find. That person stops for a second and they listen maybe to the background behind them, or they say, no, I'm good. What's this about? And we're off to the races. We just open the call. If you want something different, you have to do something different. Now, for you veterans out there that are still not convinced, that's okay. We're not looking to change everything you know about sales, just to give you some different thoughts and ideas on how to go about it, maybe in a different way. So if you're still thinking, Bob, it sounds like I'm making it really easy for this person to get off the phone with me. Yeah, you are, right? Prospecting is not selling. We want to talk to people that are open to having a conversation with us. And by the way, if we think about that other rule that says just because we bring it up doesn't mean it didn't exist. Just because we bring up the idea of it sounds like I might be catching you at a bad time, we might really be catching them at a bad time, and now is not a good time for them to talk. Walk that all the way through and think about amateur salespeople, how they're tied to the outcome, right? If it goes well, then that says good things about me. If it goes bad, then that says bad things about me, my skills, what it is that I offer. That amateur salesperson could try to blow past that opening using fancy questions, right? Am I catching you at a good time? Well, I mean, it's not a great time. What's this call about? Instead of saying, it sounds like I might be catching you at a bad time, or you sound busy, they launch right into it. And they get about a third or 3/4 of the way through their opening spiel, if you will, and the person stops them and they say, hey, I'm not interested. Click. And they get off the phone, they're thinking, I must not be doing it right. When in fact, maybe that person was in the middle of doing their taxes. Maybe they were in the middle of a sales presentation of their own. Maybe they were, and this happens to me all the time. I do a lot of work by webinar. One-on-one coaching clients, or coaching with an entire company, all sitting around at their desks on a webinar. And every now and then, about 10-15 minutes before the webinar starts, the phone on my desk will ring, and it's a number that I don't recognize. And I'll answer it thinking that it might be one of the people that's trying to log into the webinar, and maybe their code doesn't work, or maybe they don't know how, and it's a sales call. Well, if I'm supposed to be live with a coaching client in 5 minutes, I don't have time to take a sales call. Just because we bring it up doesn't mean it didn't exist. Just means that you and I weren't a part of that conversation. So if we open a call in a way that sounds different than every other salesperson, what we're going to find is that most people, that sense of curiosity is going to keep them involved long enough to find out more. Now, I'm a big fan of making sure that we only accomplish one thing at a time, right? That we don't expect too much out of one simple thing. By opening a call in a different way, all we're looking to do is grab a piece of their attention to get them to stop what they're doing long enough for us to go to the next step. And here's what that one is. We're going to ask for help. So we're going to open the call in a different way, and then we're going to ask for help. It could sound like this. Hey, it's Bob Marks over at XYZ Company. Gosh, you sound busy. It sounds like I might be catching you at a bad time. I'm hoping you can help me out. Could you maybe point me in the right direction? I'm not sure if it makes sense for us to talk. Can I tell you why I'm calling? So we're going to open the call in a different way, and then we're immediately going to ask for help. Why would we do that? Well, people, they like to help. They like to help, and it starts to lower that resistance. See, we don't have to go in all polished. We don't have to go in knowing all the answers. When we ask for help, it lowers resistance. So let me back up that role play, right? Play along with me in your head, right? Don't be a prospect from hell. Play along with me nicely, just so you can hear how it goes. So, hey, it's Bob Marks over at XYZ Company. Sounds like I might be catching you at a bad time. Well, I'm hoping you can help me out, maybe point me in the right direction. I'm not sure if it even makes sense for us to talk. Can I tell you why I'm calling? We've opened the call in a different way. We've lowered some resistance. Now we're going to use this concept called relate, versus admit.